Good morning everyone, welcome to the class. Today we will be learning something about the dance and dramas in Myanmar. Myanmar folk culture. Myanmar culture is essentially a folk culture. Buddhism, which originated in a rural setting such as that of Myanmar, has pervaded its life since the 11th century and has blended harmoniously with Halk culture. The emphasis given by Buddhism to equality among all men and women and to the liberty and dignity of the dividable hits in with Tibet, Burma social tradition. The feast of merit in China, Imar for example, has the some folk background as that of a Buddhist Myanmar. Alms giving are money, the doming, singing, music and general gaiety of Kachin sacrificial alteration are reflected in the Myanmar ornament imitating by as a movie in the Buddhist order of monks, and the animals, monsters, trees, flowers and abstract designs carved on the central part of a Kachin means club are similar to those raved on the doors of the palace of the kings. Some observers maintain that Myanmar culture is animistic, others that it is Buddhist, but all agree that it is Myanmar. Myanmar drama in 1886 appeared to be dying with the passing of the old kingdom. As it was essentially a folk drama, however, it survived with the regaining of independence gathered new strength. Myanmar dancing, if we see, it appears in two general modes meeting in the Juve. The provincial or agricultural festivals continue mostly as a New Year feast, the water festive, and the February harvest feast when paddy is knepped after 8 months of field work. At the New Year feast, young men dance along village and streets, are caught by elder ladies who bind them and black their faces. They must do the monkey dance to obtain release by ransom. The absolute Nibatkin had many mime dances with its Jataka legends. Another range of village dancers portrays the 37 nuts or nature spirits alternated with havsa or recitations of stories in reuse with mime and music. The animistic net plays had a parallel in puppet plays, same with significant animal characters, each of which performed a traditional and typical dance belonging to that animal. Myanmar dances, unlike Greek dances, began with women. They have no war, no sword dance as such, but celebrate a popular gathering like the East of Frolls. Modern Myanmar dancing then became professional and helped to develop the Pei or popular hair with shows, singing, dancing and mime and water sports. Court dance, minds nourished from 18th century, now revealing resurgent Hindu influences with tales from Ramayana. In the reign of King Bodavapaya, a ministry of theatre instituted village festivals continued in Thai folk dance manner, ceremonial dances and plays developed in court circles, and the town fair combined all material it could obtain more in a commercial spirit. Myanmar had a long tradition of spirit dances. These dances are performed to propitiate one or more of the 37 nets known in Myanmar. As the closest country to India of Southeast Asia, Myanmar learned of Indian dance, early dance and music in Myanmar for many centuries before any distinctive theatre years evolved. In the 16th century, Myanmar dances were being performed by professional entertainers. They called themselves spirit dancers, and this type of performance they yar was called Nibhatkin or Surit play. Actually, these performers were vagabond entertainers who used religion as a convenient cover for their secular activities, much as the prostitute Okuni who hounded kabuki in Japan at Elms to the same time posed as a priestess performing religious dances. A clown was the main character in most Myanmar spirit plays. The present day North V or spirit show is a direct descendant at those earlier spirit plays. Interestingly enough, the animistic element is more important in the Net way than it was centuries ago. In contemporary Net power, the main oracle performed by Net Kedov, the main dance performed by a Net Kedov, a professional dancer, medium who through the dance calls down into herself Net spirit for purpose of foreseeing future. The dancer is esteemed more for her fortune, feeling ability than for her skills as dancer. The Phe is the national amusement of the people of Myanmar. The word Phe covers all varieties of theatrical entertainment in Myanmar, something that is shown, and it is exactly equivalent to the word show. At present, there are 6 different types of current power. They exist all over Myanmar and are now most concentrated in the port city of Rangoon. The most important of the Phes is the Z ray. It colloquially means any performance of the classical theatre by a troupe of actors who, as the story progresses and the narrative permits, indulge in long passages of dance sequences. It refers to the endowment's body of stories and legends concerning the life of Buddha. Loyally, a Z Phe extends from 9 am to 4 am. The play is set in one of the classical periods of Sarmai's history. Kings, queens, deceitful courtiers and plotting Jorum ministers are the characters. The themes are about the cuteness of succession to the throne, flights by night into the woodland, hideouts, consented identifies, and finally happy marriages and restorations to the throne. There are alternating scenes of comedy and matches. The overall theme is progress of happiness of the leading characters into preparation and hardship. The ending is always a reunion and gladness prevails. The main dance scene is around 2 am for 3 am called 30 Pa Tha. The excuse in the plot may be a festival or marriage or irrelevant interlude with no bearing on the plot. After that, the play resumes and leads towards its denouement. The full orchestra of Myanmar instrument plays constantly announce a scene of gladness or sorrow by lay the setting of a forest or court to subtend the overall mood. The orchestra is called saying. A drone of instruments are used, for example, carved teakwood, saxophones, several large drums, ivory horns and various other percussion instruments. The 2 chief instruments of the siring orchestra, one is a circle of 1 small prided drums ranging in sound from low to shrilly high. Drums encased in a sort of circular picket finance of gold painted flats studded with briefs of sparkling reflecting mirrors. The other one is a pole from which homes 2 large songs of heavy metal. Its flame shocked like a mythological beast. The Dig's reverberating renounce of the songs punctuates the main pulses of the music and electronize the basic funding of the orchestra. Myanmar music ranks second in Asia only next to Indonesian music. Nearly all dancing in Myanmar is based on or derived from the classical Zet-way. They are energetic, designed to execute, agitate and stimulate, and women always dance together. Another type of way that Myanmar offers is the Net way or spirit dance. It can be performed only on astrological auspicious days. They concern themselves with spirit, most of which were recognized by the earliest inhabitants of the country before the advent of Buddhism, and they are in the essence of exorcist rituals and may or may not, depending on occasions and the mood of medium, turn into trance dances of possession. The spirit dance is also used as a means of divination. It requires a number of things and a number of performers. A large altar of bamboo and nubilis leaves is constructed at one end of the area where the dance is held, and is stacked high with headdress, young coconuts, bananas, offerings of flowers and betel nut, pieces of cloth, eggs, apples and bottles of liquor. These spirit dances, according to people of Myanmar, were also an element of democracy in old days during the sometimes tyrannical rule of the kings. If a medium in a trance fell upon some member of audience and attributed godlike qualities to him, even the king was forced to respect him and listen to his advice. One section of the spirit dance which is particularly moving and which contains elements of sequential drama as well as dance is called Ton Breon and reenacts martyrdom of two young boys. The Enyen Fei is an abbreviated form of Zet Fei. It consists of 4 people, 2 dancers and 2 clowns. The coming element is fully in keeping with the national character of Myanmar. Throughout a Zet Fei, regardless of its starry courses, the thread of comes from chains who appear at intervals. They crack jokes aimlessly, often unrelated to the plot, and amuse the audience with slapstick antics. They are forested indigenously with ludicrous makeup of white eyebrows and cheeks of blot of rouge and black lines around the eyes. Yen Pei simply extracts that hero-like elements combined with dance interludes and condenses them into a short evening's entertainment. Yen Pei is a combined dance and drama form based on religious themes, usually of allegorical significance, lengthy, arrived and embraces a vast cast whose actors are often armaments. It is so elaborate and only performed on most holy festival days before the highest ranking officials and dignitaries. In effect, it is scarcely more than a napant. Yusham Fei or Yukthai Fei are both terms which refer to puppet or marionette shows of which Burma is famous. During the late 18th century and early 19th century, puppets are in tremendous vogue. Inevitably, live actors displayed them. At present, only one living descendant of many line of puppeteers who lives in Mandalay and gives occasional performances. Being divorced from popular support for so many years now, the aged master was able to concentrate on the perfection of his own idea of the art without hindrance. Or virginally, those marionette plays were only simple animal acts which were unformed, and animals danced and paraded for audiences of children under the influence of Myanmar court drama, full-scale puppet plays come to be staged in the 19th century. Shortly after the conquest of Ayodhya, King Bodovpaya appointed a minister of theatre who was responsible for regulating and encouraging the drama. The minister tried unsuccessfully to recast existing theatre into a more suitable mold. He found live actors to be reluctant lot, so he set about creating a puppet drama over which he could have complete control. The puppeteers were recruited from among the best performers of the time and the troops sent around the countryside. Surviving marionette figures who orgies with red, greens and gold faces and comical headgear like masks worn by Thaikon dancers. The technique of performance is quite advanced as it can be seen from the fact that up to 60 steering were used to manipulate the apoyodav votaries of the spirits, a figure which connected with animistic net worship appeared in every Buddhist Jataka puppet play. Marionette plays became very popular in the early part of the 19th century, but since troops were totally dependent upon court support, the connotation of Myanmar by the British in the middle of the century proved disastrous to the puppet theatre. In 1929, there was one puppet theatre in Myanmar. The most recent form of play in Myanmar, the Pya Zat or modern play, loyally comedies. Modern plays received special stimulus during the occupation of Myanmar by Japanese. The most interesting aspect is the acting talent and the ability revealed despite the classical traditions and the song, dance, drama, puppet melange. Myanmar theatre involves a special instinct for theatre, which is a native sense of acting in a Western sense. Prior of the 20th century, it was unusual for the Zatwe actors to err from Jataka plays, for it was considered contrary to the seventh law of Buddha for an actor to represent Buddha on stage. Halape mentions Mahajanaka by Likho as a dramatizatio of the Jataka prepared for some theatrical company ad printed for role in 1875. Even earlier in 1872, the playwright Upon Nye wrote Vizen based on a Ceylonese vision of a Jataka story. But by and large, Jataka plays remained the province of the Marionette Theatre Unite shortly before World War I. The great Zatwe actor Bose introduced the custom of live actors performing Jataka. Myanmar court drama dates from 1767, when that courtiers were captured, their court drama was introduced. Myanmar nobles were fascinated by the subtlety and refinement of this imported theatre, and they were quick to adopt it. At first, the Thai plays were reproduced as nearly as possible. Dramas based on Ramayana and the adventures of Panji were translated literary form that into Myanmar, as in Thailand. The Ramayana was played as a birth story of Buddha, with Rama portrayed as future Buddha within a few years. However, Myanmar court texts had begun to connote in elegant verse their own plays on both traditional and new themes, and a destructive. Myanmar court drama came into being court plays performed mainly at the Myanmar capital, first at Ava and later at Mandalay. Both vulgarized versions found their way into their patron of travelling personal troops. Widespread knowledge of Rama story in Myanmar dates from the reflectively late period. Court drama was already descendant when the British arrived in Myanmar in mid 19th century. There were no new vets in the arts of performance was stagnating. Court drama had flourished for somewhat less than 100 years when a low years after the British conquered Myanmar, it ended almost abruptly as it had begun. The last vestiges of Myanmar court drama are seen in classical plays called Zat, in which dance and music and construe are reminiscent of Thai Myanmar classical dance drama. They are performed by many Zatfe theatres, Trois in central and southern Myanmar. Myanmar divides itself geographically and ethnically into the lower and upper areas. The power belonged to lower Myanmar of the ferric mains of the Loch. Upper Myanmar consists of hills and mountains. Shan dancing is the best seen during a festival or at the harvest time. All dancers in Upper Myanmar are amateurs since there is no professional art. Roughly classified, the dance of Upper Myanmar falls into three groups: the professional, those limitative of animals, and the fighting creed. Lays professional dances are single, eliminatory, troipings and trainings of boys and girls of villages. They walk about in a single sail, forming circles and arcs, and sing as they gesticulate with their hands and arms, usually the thumb and the forefinger curls to form a circle, and as the dulcet drums and fangs softly resound in at chill might air, the dancers spin out their unenergetic and graceful patterns. Animal dances are more complex. They are usually requested in full costume, imitative of the animal to be reproduced in dance, a thing horse, bind, yak or the half bind, half woman, human kinnara. The dancer mimics the animal with precise and exact verisimilitude. It was a composition and a logical flow of emotion and chains of movements together in peaceful connected sessions. The dance is a representation, but by skill and artistry he is able to make it an improved and sensible depiction. The scope for humor and even vulgarity is clear. The dancer can mock the animal, exploit its stupidities, make its antics grotesque, ungainly or awkward to the Myanmar, something harmonious anyway in a human bedeking himself like an animal and going through the motions of a lesser creature, or can exhibit its severity and fill you with every at its placid calm and majesty. The Lai Ka, literally high dank, but sometimes translated a defense offense, of the Shan states is its most systematized dance. It is basically a line of training or rehearsal, her actual combat. Its principle, like a palindrome of logic, is if you can dance, you can fight. If you can high, automatically you can dance. It is performed exclusively by men who are almost made except for an exiguous pair of shorts. Nudity is not only for enacom of movement or to show off the dancer's muscles, but to display, as far as modesty permits, his dark blue tattoos of floral designs which extend solidly around the body from waist to just about the knees. The basic beginning of fighting dance is called the free hand. It begins with the host held thumbs up at the chest. Then the empty-handed performer fails the air restlessly, pacing back and forth, pivoting and reversing suddenly, bouncing and skating blows at imaginary invisible enemies. The dancer twists, adorns and sinks cross-legged to the ground only to spring up as if unbinding his legs and recommences his watchful, alert probing of the air of all times, the dance matches the rhythm and speed of the music, which change from time to time, according to indications from either the drummer or dancer himself. The second of fighting dances is sword dance flare. The dancer swirls, share and sleeking swords about his body at wind speed over the head, never the neck and around the knees. There is real danger in this dance. If the perfume miscalculates or his timing halters, he would slice off an ear or yash his knees. The unsure beginner particles with his swords well away from the body. As he flows more expert, he brings the swords closed and closer in towards him. A master danger will in the heat of the dance keep the swords continuously grazing his body untidy. They seem to be slithering and shingling over him. The third high ting dance is the fire dance, where the ends of a long wand wrapped in thick cotton weds, then dipped in kerosene and set aflame, the dancer twirls it in his hands like a drum major, posing it through legs over his head and bringing it closer and closer to the body until the speaks sprinkle over him. Finally, he tosses it in the air and switches. It still spanning lie a Catherine wheel in one hand. Dance is made even complicated when a pair of dampers, each with two flaming wands in their lands, perform a mock fight, ducking and avoiding the feints and sallies of their partner and saying to each side to sequel the burning thrust of their lively opponents. There have been periods of rise and decline in Myanmar's theatrical world, but it is fortunate today to find Myanmar at one of its heights with seconds of good doctors, cancers and musicians. In 1953, the Union of Myanmar Cultural Department created the Department of Fine Arts and Music at Mandalay, the old cultural capital of the country. See art of some of the most famous kingdoms. Principles of Myanmar dancing works. The dance in Myanmar consists of dynamics of poses, series of gesticulations specified and determined by the aesthetic pleasure which the sight of theme gives. It is emotional only in that they capture the single mood of ejaculation. No graphic or pictorial telemeters associated with interpretative alone. No burden of understanding is placed on the spectator. The only thing required of him is an appreciation of the virosity and technical brilliance. Dancers leap into the air with arms twisting and curling. There are a series of deep ear bends, a series of Russian piles. They whirl around on one foot with the left extended. Performers smile throughout and occasionally break out laughing. Actors length as much as the audience. Myanmar find it more enjoyable if it is clear that the performer is having a good time too. The basic starting posture is close to a crouch. The knees spread as far apart buttocks, thrust back and the pelvic are re-stretched until the dance hovers above the floor. The heels are held together, the feet are splayed outwards in a wide V. Ebors with hands at the hips and hangers pointing towards audience, thrust rewards and held close to the body so that they look like leatherless hold wings. It traces about 6 months for the average year-old child to learn the dance of greeting and master the 10 basic steps it contains. He begins with the feet, practices rhythm by lifting the feet as if marking time. Then there it followed by walk and finally adds hand gestures and more advanced turn. The emotional range of Myanmar dancing is limited. Sorrow is represented in arch lately. Myanmar say that you cannot dance if you are really sad personally and grief stimulated or real. Afford no chance for dancing. Sad song passages render the dance more measured, the music slower, the drums being leisurely, and the dancer moves with a touch of restraint. To a certain extent stylized, the artificiality of dance and its connections due to influence of the puppets, imitations of stiff jerky walk of puppets and excessively soaring springs into the air.